Today, we are digging into a single document that has absolutely taken over the conversation in Nepal. We're talking about a 27-point list of demands. And look, this isn't about small changes. It's a blueprint for a total ground-up reinvention of the entire nation.
It's a pretty wild question, right? But that's the whole idea behind this plan, which was put forward on November 12, 2025. It's a seriously ambitious shot at charting a completely new course for the country, starting from scratch.
And this right here, this is the central idea that connects all 27 points. The argument is simple and direct. The current political system isn't just a little broken, it's the root cause of the country's deep financial struggles. So, if that's the problem, the solution has to be just as massive. Okay, so let's jump into the most drastic ideas first, the ones that are all about completely rebuilding Nepal's government. We're not just talking about changing who's in charge, we're talking about changing the very soul of the state. So, demand number one, get rid of the current constitution. The proposal wants to bring back a constitutional monarchy and reestablish Nepal as a Vedic Hindu kingdom. Now, what's really key here is how they want this decided, not by politicians, but by the people, through a public referendum. Next up, they're taking aim at the federal system. The plan calls the current 7 provinces a white elephant. You know, something that's super expensive and doesn't really work. The demand is to scrap it and go back to the older, more centralized system of 5 development regions. It's pitched as a way to save money, but make no mistake, it's also a huge power grab back to the central government. And that move towards central power doesn't stop there. There's a call for a directly elected executive prime minister, which is meant to stop the constant instability of coalition governments. And this is paired with a really heavy demand for accountability. The immediate arrest and investigation of all the top leaders from the old government. The message is loud and clear. The old guard failed, and they need to answer for it. Now, that political stuff is huge, but it's the economic proposals that really hit a nerve, tapping right into the financial anxiety that so many people are feeling. This section is all about a massive, radical intervention to save the economy. To make their case, they use this absolutely jaw-dropping number, 34 trillion rupees. That's 34 kharab, which they claim is at risk in the banking system. And to get that money back and protect people's savings, they're demanding the nationalization of all banks. From there, they tackle debt. And this is really smart because you can see how they've targeted different groups who are both feeling the squeeze. For working-class folks with small loans under 2 million rupees, the demand is simple. Just forgive it. Wipe the slate clean. Gone. But for the middle class with bigger loans, the plan is different, but it's just as big of a deal. For those folks with bigger loans, the plan offers some serious relief. First, all the loans get restructured. Then, you get a new 25-year timeline to pay it back. And maybe most importantly, the interest rate is capped at a subsidized 5%. For small business owners and families drowning in debt, that's a lifeline. And it goes even further. The plan demands the government undo some of the most painful results of the financial crisis. We're talking about guaranteeing that people get their homes and land back that were seized by banks, and making sure savers who lost everything in failed cooperatives get their money back. So it's not just about numbers. It's about connecting this debt crisis to people's actual homes and security. Which brings us to the next big theme, tackling the brain drain. This section lays out a plan to stop the flood of young people leaving the country and to completely change Nepal's reliance on a remittance economy. You know, an economy that basically runs on money sent home from abroad. So how do you get people to come home? You have to give them a really good reason. And this is it. The idea is to offer project loans up to 3 million rupees for migrant workers who come back to Nepal. It's basically a direct investment to turn their hard-earned capital and experience into new businesses right here at home.
And here's where it gets really radical. These loans would be offered at just a 3% interest rate, with no collateral. The thinking behind it is pretty powerful. By sending money home year after year, these workers have already proven they're reliable. So the state, in return, should trust them to build something new.
This quote just perfectly sums up the whole economic idea here. The goal is to shift what Nepal exports. Instead of exporting its people, its youth, it should be exporting its products, things like Himalayan water, herbs, and grain. It's a fundamental challenge to the way the whole economy has worked for decades. All right, this leads us to our last big theme, You can really think of this section as a new social contract. It's a mix of really generous welfare promises on one side and incredibly harsh punishments on the other, all meant to force a new, higher standard of government. So first, here's the carrot. To fight corruption, the plan suggests a massive pay raise, a minimum monthly salary of 1 lakh. That's 100,000 rupees for every single public servant. The logic is pretty simple. If you pay people well enough to live a dignified life, you take away the need to be corrupt in the first place. But right after that juicy carrot comes a very big stick. For any official who takes that huge new salary and still decides to be corrupt, the punishment is brutal. You're fired on the spot, and you go to prison for life. So it's a system with a really high reward, but also a catastrophic risk if you break the rules. The plan also throws in some broad tax cuts that are clearly aimed at winning over urban professionals, things like a 10% flat income tax and getting rid of VAT. But this is then balanced with a much stronger social safety net, including things like free medical care and a monthly allowance for the elderly. So when you step back and look at the whole thing, you see this really fascinating tension, right? On one hand, the politics are looking backward, calling for a return to the monarchy. But on the other hand, the economic plan is super radical, almost socialist. So why this weird mix? Well, it's a classic populist playbook. You appeal to that sense of tradition and national pride, while at the same time you address modern economic pain with these massive, sweeping promises. It's trying to bring two very different types of frustration together under one big tent. This roadmap is definitely tapping into very real anger about everything from debt and corruption to losing a whole generation of young people. But it leaves us with one final, and I think really tough question. When you think about the incredible cost of forgiving all that debt, of those huge salary increases, and the no collateral loans, which one of those huge promises would actually be the single hardest for any government to keep?